Would you all repeat after me? Forward together.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Not one step back.
Would you ever say with me, everybody,
Everybody,
be quiet
be quiet
for 15 minutes.
for 15 minutes.
We gather here today. I'm so thankful for Hazel Dukes, Mike Mulgrew, Randy Weingarten, Anthony Harmon, Billy Easton, my brother Pilata, and also Ms. McGee. As we gather here on this day, a people unified, I bring you greetings from the North Carolina NAACP and the Forward Together Moral Movement, where we have been gathering for now over 100 weeks. I did not come here to lead you because we believe that leadership must come up from the bottom. We believe that it must be indigenously led, deeply moral, deeply constitutional, anti-racist, anti-poverty, pro-justice, pro-labor, transformative fusion coalitions at the state level. But I come to join with my friend Hazel Dukes and Michael Mulgrew and all of these teachers and students to say there is something going on around this country. We've been at it 100 weeks. We've had 1,006 people get arrested. We had 960 of them thrown out of court. We've had 1,000 clergy to join us and more than 80,000 people to join us last February. And it's moving around this country. We gather here today unified in a common cause, joined by God's spirit of love and truth and power. We gather in the tradition of the civil rights and the union movement, of those who have worked throughout history to heal a divided nation. We gather here not for gains or false glory, nor to score some political points. Public education is not a left issue. Public education is not a right issue. Public education is not a conservative issue. Public education is not a liberal issue. Public education is a deeply moral issue, a deeply constitutional issue. How, listen to me today, how we ensure that every child has the right to a high-quality, constitutional, well-funded, diverse public education says something about the soul of our state, the soul of politics, and the soul of this nation, and how we value the life and the development of every soul that God has created. Regardless of class, regardless of creed, regardless of color, education and care for our children is too big for our normal, puny political talk. Education is a religious issue. Isaiah chapter 1 says, learn to do good, seek justice, and bring justice to the children. Isaiah 10 says, woe unto those who legislate evil and rob the poor of their rights. Jeremiah 22 says, don't send an email, but go down to the king's house and tell the king to do justice and righteousness, deliver the one who has been robbed by the power of the oppressor, and treat the children right. Jesus said it would be better for you to tie a millstone around your neck and be thrown into the water than to offend one of his children. But not only is it a deeply moral issue, your Constitution in New York, Section 1, Article 1, Section 1, says no member of this state shall be disenfranchised or deprived of any of the rights and privileges secured to its citizens. Somebody say, that's our Constitution.
That's our Constitution.
Your Constitution in Article 1 says no person, that includes children, shall be denied the equal protection of laws of this state or by any subdivision of this state. Your Constitution, Article 11, Section 1 says the legislature shall provide for the maintenance and support of a system of free, not privatized, free. Free common schools wherein all the children of this state shall be educated. All the children, not some. Privatizing schools can't guarantee these moral or constitutional demands. Funding schools with property tax formulas that is inherently unequal can't guarantee these moral and constitutional demands. Charter schools that too often become modern-day forms of isolation that have no empirical data to say they are better than public schools can't guarantee this constitutional and moral demand. Attacking teachers relentlessly can't guarantee these constitutional and moral. And using your political power, Governor, to settle score just because you're mad somebody criticized you, rather than ensuring the promises of our Constitution, can't guarantee. Here we are today. And in North Carolina, we learned a few years ago that regardless of who occupies the governor's office or who occupies the legislative halls, Republican or Democrat, when it comes to public education, the issue is not what is Democrat or Republican, it's what is right versus what is wrong. And so, if we must march, march. If you gotta go to court, go to court. If it means direct action, nonviolent civil disobedience, then do it, because this is a moral fight to ensure that every child, red, yellow, black, or white, are precious not only in God's sight, but in our sight. But as I come here today, can I teach a minute?
Yeah.
We don't need to go backwards. Say go backwards.
Go backwards.
In 1785, over 200 years ago, President John Adams said, the whole people, not some of the people, the whole people must take upon themselves the education of the whole people and be willing, Randy, to bear the expenses of it. In 1785, John Adams said, there should not be a district of 1 mile square without a school in it, and it shouldn't be funded by a charitable individual, but maintained at public expense of the people. Anytime we undermine funding of public education or set up unequal funding processes, we are violating a principle that's more than 230 years. We don't need to be following ALEC. We don't need to follow the Koch brothers scheme of privatizing public schools. We don't need to watch them siphon public dollars and give it to their private friends. Public education is as American as our love for freedom. And the only time we've had a problem in America funding diverse public education has been when somebody decides to do it on an unequal basis based on class and race.
All right.
That's why any abdication of our deepest commitment to every child receiving equal access to high-quality, well-funded, diverse public education is, as Dwight Eisenhower said, who was a Republican, an undermining of national security.
All right.
Dr. King said 20 days before he was shot, there's the other America. He said, one America, everything is fine. People are prospering. But we can't forget the other America.
That's right.
That has a daily ugliness about it, where there's distress and children are not being educated because of the lack of opportunity. And they are not making it, not because their minds aren't brilliant, but because of their access to the same things that other children had. In 1984, I say it with all deepest respect and humility and in remember of late Governor Mario Cuomo. He talked about the other side of the city. He said one side is a shining city, but there's another side where people can't pay their mortgages, where most young people can't afford one, where students can't afford an education, and where their dreams evaporate. In this part of the city, there are more poor than there are wealthy. And anything less than trying to close the gap in the other America and the other city is just wrong. You must meet, governor, legislators, the constitutional responsibility for adequate funding. The courts said this state, like the courts did in North Carolina, is guilty of not providing equitable funding. And it's been guilty for 9 years. Now I want you to think about that. If you didn't pay your parking ticket for 9 years and they found you, they would arrest you. Somebody needs to arrest the attention of the governor and this legislature. And anything less is just wrong. When it can be proven that per pupil funding in the cities, which have an average 72% student poverty rate, is nearly $6,000 less. There's an $8,000 gap between wealthy school district and poor school district. When it can be proven that New York spends 10 times more, 6 times more per prisoner than we do on pupils, that's just wrong. And let me almost finish by saying this. I'm tired, and we're tired, from North Carolina to New York. When it comes to public education, they say, well, you got to do more than throw money at it. Tell Wall Street,
All right, now.
you got to do more.
All right.
You don't tell hedge funders that it's more than just money. You don't tell those who want to take money from public schools and give it to their private school developers it's more than money. Why do you throw money at everything else, but when it comes to the public education of black, brown, and poor white children and teachers, then it's a money issue? I stop by to tell you, as a preacher of the gospel, it is a money issue. Because the Bible says where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. Budgets. Somebody say budgets.
Budget.
Say budgets.
Budget.
Say budgets.
Budget.
Are moral documents.
On moral documents.
And so, I want you finally to remember that 60 years ago, the NAACP won its biggest victory, Brown versus Board of Education. And 61 years ago, Thurgood Marshall, when he was closing his arguments, said the only way the court can decide in this case, in opposition to our position, that separate but equal is unconstitutional, is that they must admit that they believe that in regards to the Negro, certain people are inferior. I want to bring that wisdom forward and to say the only way New York, the only way this legislative body, the only way this governor, the only way anybody can accept the resegregation of our children based on race and class today, the only way you can accept the inequality of funding of public schools is to argue that certain children in certain communities are inherently inferior.
All right.
Inherently inferior. And I want you to know, as a Southerner, New York ought to be ashamed that I can come from North Carolina and find out that the schools in New York are more segregated than they are down south in a southern city. Somebody ought to be ashamed that on September 28th, 1957, Ella Baker led 500 blacks and Puerto Ricans to demand that New York would desegregate. And now, all these years later, We're still talking about equity and funding and dealing with resegregation. Somebody ought to say, a shame. But it doesn't have to be this way. As I close, Governor Cuomo, leaders on both sides of the aisle, it doesn't have to be this way if you come together. If you come together with teachers, and come together with the unions, and come together with the parents, and come together with the scholars, and come together with the NAACP. We know what it takes to have excellent public education. 8 things. Stop resegregation, promote diversity. Number 2, secure equitable funding in poor districts. Number 3, hire and retain and support high quality teachers. Number 4, have smaller class sizes. Number 5, focus on math, science, history, and reading. Number 6, promote parental and community development. And number 7, eliminate inequities in suspensions and graduation rates as it relates to black, brown, and poor white children. This should not be about political gamesmanship. You should not be educated based on the kind of house your parent can afford and the amount of property that you own. We want a constitutional, high-quality, diverse public education for every child. This is personal for me. My father and my mother helped to desegregate public schools in the South. They brought me from Indiana and entered me into segregated public schools in 1968 so that I could be a part of the first group to go in 1971, 17 years after Brown. And my mother is 82 years old. I called her this morning, and she's still working at the very public school that said because she was black, she wasn't ready to be there. So for me, it's moral, it's constitutional, and it's personal. Don't give up on this fight. There is still the hope of e pluribus unum. Out of one, the many come, many out of one. Stay together. Don't give up what you're doing. This land is your land. This state is your state. Don't stop. Stay together. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm on my way. Mother Duke, wait a minute. I'm on my way back to North Carolina. But in my faith tradition, don't you give up. Because when God made everything, he looked around at all of it, not a little segment, not certain communities, not certain colors, and he declared it was very good. Randy, the Jewish psalmist, says how good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in unity. Paul the apostle said, in the Lord we are one blood, made as one nation. We cannot accept 2 Americas. We cannot accept 2 New Yorks. Here in New York, you must stay together and remind this governor there is something at stake here beyond just the state of the schools. It is the state of the soul of our society. And the question is, do we want to keep pressing toward a just and wholesome society where everybody is taken care of? I want to argue we can't turn back now. It was too hard, Mother Dukes, to get where we are now, and yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. Too many prayers were prayed. Too many lives were sacrificed. Too much blood was shed. Too many tears were cried. We cannot turn back now. Forward together. Forward together. Not one step back. True community. True community. We'll get there. But you gotta stay together. And love together. And call for justice together, and walk together, and fight together, and believe together. We will get there. And when we get there, we will build a New York, a new North Carolina, a new country, a new America,
Yes.
and a new school system.
Yes.
But we must do it together.
Yes, sir.
Together.
Yes, sir.
Together.
Yes, sir.
And so, I've just come today to encourage you. I got to go back to North Carolina and deal with tomorrow Monday. Don't you give up the fight. Leave here now. There's going to be a read-in where the young people are going to lead. Go and support them. Go to the second floor. Be a part of the read-in. But come back again and again and again and again until we do right by every child in this state. God bless you.